Welcome to Politics and Power, a program that I do live on social media as a way of giving back to my community, that which my community pumped into me. My name is Alex Bruno, for those of you who do not know, and I am involved in politics as someone who practices in the discipline. And every now and then I come live to have a conversation or to speak on what I think is important enough to share some thoughts on. And on this particular episode of Politics and Power, I'll be speaking about the situation in Dominica, my native country, the leader of the opposition, the lack of it thereof. And I wanted to refer to the Constitution, think of the management of political institutions, and see whether I could shed some light on what I think is happening in Dominica and what ought to have happened. This is a live program done in real time, and it's being done live on the 18th of May, 2025. So you may observe the rebroadcast of this program sometime in the future. But for now, I just wanted to mark the moment that this particular episode was done live. And it's also significant because on that day as well, my village, my home village, Kalibishi, but I should say one of my twin home villages, because my family and friends from Woodford Hill sometimes chastise me for sometimes forgetting Woodford Hill. I don't ever forget Woodford Hill, but Kalibishi is actually my stomping ground, and I know the village better than any other village. So my village, Kalibishi, flooded today. Flooded meaning we had a natural intervention where in the back street area of the flat of the village, the entire area was flooded out, including my childhood house. And I must say thanks to Nola for jumping in there, being the wonderful neighbor that she is, and to take care of business for us, get the water out and make sure that the mud did not settle. So Nola, I owe you one, and Jill owe you one, and Mami owe you one, and Annie owe you one, and Rowan owe you one, and Chis. Everybody should give you one. I'm not sure what that one is, but you deserve it, Nola. Thank you. Nola is an example of a wonderful neighbor. And Nola, I love you. You're just the best. Thank you for jumping in there and taking care of the water, because if the water had settled before you cleaned up, there would be maybe an inch or so of mud. And you did that in record time. Thank you. So Kalibishi flooded. That was the first time, probably in the existence of the village, the water went so high. I remember as a boy, the village regularly floods because Kalibishi backstreet area is prone for flooding, and there are reasons why. Some people, I heard one person say today, global warming. No, Kalibishi has been flooding for a while. And the issue is the sogginess of the terrain and the lack of proper drainage. There has been a major problem in Kalibishi going back to time immemorial, in the 1980s. And now it's worse because some work is being done on the southern end of the village in the Liviado area. I think some construction work is being done on the savannah, which had been a thoroughfare for water. Where the school was before, that's where the school was before for some good reason. And I'm not too sure why, but there seems to be some construction taking place on the savannah area, and that is a waterbed. So I'm hoping now that people understand why certain things were not done and probably why certain things should not be done where they are being done. And I heard Webster's report of the water. The water was touching the Liviado Bridge. I had never seen the water touch the Liviado Bridge. It has gotten high. Probably maybe it went over it at times, but in my lifetime in Kalibishi, I have never seen it. And whenever the water touched that bridge, I know every area in Backstreet was flooded over. You had to have been an upstairs and downstairs, upstairs a two-story building, and there are not very many two-story buildings in Backstreet. In fact, Nenen had one, a two-story building. I think in terms of the immediate Backstreet area, who else? I think Babo's house is a little tall. Sonny Boy is not upstairs and downstairs. Madeleine had an upstairs and downstairs as well. So there are not very many two-story buildings in the back street. So any and every building in back street would have flooded, and my house flooded out as well. I just had to see the height of the water in Laivieru. I knew everybody at the back flooded. So I wanted to make this comment in solidarity with my village, because I am nobody without my village. And I want to shout out Webb and Desmond, Madel, the entire crew, because I'm always in touch with my villagers. And Mary Diff, Celestine, our cultural queen, love her so much. She's somebody who supports her party and her politics strong. But when it comes to her work in the village, there is nothing about politics. Meo is just it. That's why I love Meo. That's why I love my village. Because although people may say my village is one particular color, but we don't know color when it comes to time to serving our people. So Meo, take a bow. I heard you on the radio today, picking up our village, and Webb and everybody else who keep the community together. Nola, my neighbor and all, just keep the spirit of Calibishi alive. You guys are awesome. Okay, so I marked the day that I did this live broadcast, and I spoke about the flood which happened in my village on that day. Now let's talk about the issue that I wanted to handle. And the question I asked was, is there a leader of the opposition in Dominica? And it is normal for a democracy not to have a leader of the opposition, which is a constitutional mandate. So both questions will be answered. And I hope if you are viewing, you could submit a question or reasoning, and we will talk about it before my program ends. Before today, I did a little recording about that same issue, and it seemed to have caught the interest of many, many, many people. And since that time, about 3 weeks ago, I have been getting feedback from constitutional lawyers, from politicians, from scientists, suggesting certain things. And I felt probably it would have been a good idea to come on live and just have a more detailed reasoning about it. And that's why I am here today, to have a more detailed reasoning about it. For those people who are not from Calibishi and Dominica and may have known me or know of my work or are my colleagues, yes, I'm speaking about a unique situation in my country, where my country is now going without a leader of the opposition in the Parliament of Dominica. And I'll explain why in a little while, and it should make sense to you before you leave this particular live program. So stick with me. Dominica, for those people who do not know, is a Caribbean island in the center of the Caribbean archipelago. We are a constitutional democracy with a prime minister as head of government and a president as head of state. The prime minister is the one who, based on the total number of people, the majority 11, is chosen to serve as the head of the governing administration. He or she is also the head of the parliament and has a lot of sweeping powers. There are 21 constituencies in Dominica. You need to win 11 to form the majority. And the party in power right now has 18 of those 21 seats. And 2 seats were won by 2 independent candidates at the last elections of December 6, 2022. Because the more established opposition party, out of protest, and I would like to add ill-advised protest, stayed away from the election because they wanted to protest the way in which the majority had been manipulating the system to continue winning, which is a legit case. Staying away, I'm not too sure how wise it was, but we can discuss that some other time. So the most established opposition did not contest. There was no major opposition party contesting, and I'll explain that to you in a little while, because I was involved in deciding that a party should contest, and I will be totally frank and clear with you before I get into the discussion about the leader of the opposition. And 2 independents, one from Salisbury, one from Marigot, contested and won. There were other independent candidates, and one party, Team Unity Dominica, a party that I am affiliated to as a co-founder, contested with 5 candidates. None of the 5 won, but that was the only other party which contested. And I felt it best to have a party contest, because democracy should not be left to go unrepresented in the manner in which I think the more established opposition party did. Again, you can criticize that if you wish, but it's just the read of the time. And in hindsight, this has turned out to be wise. And the people who did not contest are now secretly saying we made a mistake. That being the case, the established party, which had no major contest, because TUD was a party formed 2 months before the elections, no money, no serious campaign, nothing at all, just put some names on the ballot just to represent the democracy, could not contest against a party that has been winning for 20 years. That was unfortunate, because the party that was better equipped to do so didn't do it. So the Labour Party, or the party that goes by the name of the Labour Party, won 19 seats, because we are 21, 19 seats. And there were 2 independent candidates who won. Interestingly, those independent candidates won in 2 of the strongholds of the major former parliamentary opposition party, the UWP. Marigot, which is the home ground that the party is not expected to lose, but you never know, in politics things happen. They may lose the seat eventually, who knows? Salisbury as well, which is one of the strongest political support in Dominica across party lines for any party. So those 2 areas, it is widely believed, are safe seats for the party that did not contest. And so, ironically, probably by a stroke of fate, those independent candidates in those areas won. Nobody else won anywhere else, but those 2 won. And I can confirm that the people who supported the party in those areas supported those independent candidates. So I even joked one time and said, well, the UWP independent candidates won. But that's just a passing political joke. Guys, don't take me that serious. Sometimes you got to mix the bitter with the sweet. So you understand the scenario. For those people who don't understand Dominica's politics, you now understand. And for those of us who know it, I'm just recapping what happened. 2 independent candidates won as opposition members of parliament, and 19 won for the Dominican Labour Party, which means the Dominican Labour Party swept the polls. Very little contest. I think there were like 11 or 12 seats that were unopposed. So those seats were won before. Now, I'm not sure the numbers that were unopposed. I'm subject to correction on that. I don't think there's as much as 12. I think it's like 7. So they won easily. That was the easiest win. And I just never understood it. I never fathomed why a party would just give a party an easy win like that. It does not happen in politics where you have power and you just give it up. If you had no seats, for instance, if you were a new party coming up and you felt things were not right and you don't contest, fine. But you have seats in parliament, you are giving that up. Keep those seats and protest for more. You know. Anyway, let's not get into the nitty-gritty of that. Let me talk about what I want to talk about. So those 2 independent UWP candidates won in those 2 areas, and one had to have been leader of the opposition, because there can only be one leader of the opposition according to the Constitution of Dominica. The Constitution of Dominica clearly states that there shall be a leader of the opposition. And I could even read directly from the Constitution if I have to clarify a point. I'm not here as a constitutional expert, so I'm not going to delve too much into the Constitution. But if anybody asks, I will refer to the Constitution and read what it says verbatim. It didn't say there might or there will. It said there shall. And when you see the term shall in law, it means there has to be. And right now, there is a popular notion that there is no leader of the opposition in Dominica. And I'll explain why some people believe that there is no leader of the opposition. Because Jesma Paul, who won in Salisbury, and Anthony Charles, who won in Marigot, came to some sort of agreement. They said, well, because because we are both independent candidates who won our seats, let us share the leadership of the opposition. You will go for 18 months, Jesma, and then after you, I will go. Fair game. Politicians do that. But that is not a constitutional arrangement. The government of Dominica is not bound to that arrangement. They are, or they might have been. But that is not something that rises to the level of the Constitution. The only thing that rises to the level is an agreement from both of them that whichever is going to be leader of the opposition. So there was an agreement by both Charles and Paul that Paul would be the leader of the opposition, albeit for 18 months. And the president of Dominica signed on to that because that's what the Constitution tells the president she can do, because we have a lady president, Kalinago, a very proud indigenous Dominican woman, my dear friend, Her Excellency, Mrs. Burton, and Mr. Burton, good afternoon, or good evening, or good morning, whatever time you are viewing this broadcast. I have no issues with what the president did. The president had to accede to what the people in the opposition wanted the president to do, to assign Miss Paul as leader of the opposition. That's the job done. So in between the things, there might have been a fallout between Jesma and Anthony, because I think eventually Anthony got into other partisan politics and a number of things happened. Again, that does not rise to even the level that I want to discuss, at least not on this program, and certainly does not touch the Constitution. So Jesma and Anthony had a disagreement, and Jesma somehow decided not to support Anthony to be leader of the opposition. Again, I do not have documents in front of me. I'm not quoting that, but I'm going based on what I have been observing, because I understand the local politics. I am involved in the local politics. So Anthony does not get the support from Jesma. Forget the senators appointed by Jesma. The senators are people who are appointed. They have no constitutional bearing when it comes to who becomes leader of the opposition. So whoever wrote letter and all of that talk, that is not a subject of discussion in this conversation. There were a lot of machination as to who the senators would support to lead and who sent letter to the president. All of that is a wash. The president wants to get a letter from Jesma and Anthony agreeing that Anthony is the leader of the opposition. The president did not get it. But before that, Jesma had resigned from the leadership of the opposition. And that is where I jumped in. And that is where it gets interesting. Because if you resigned, you cannot be. But the person who has to receive your resignation has a duty, because the Constitution says there shall be a leader of the opposition. And I said in my post previously that I think constitutionally, Her Excellency, the President of Dominica, had to have had a kind of conversation with Jesma and aside with her, say, look, I'm okay, I got your letter, but who is replacing you? Anthony? Okay, so where is the instrument of appointment? Because that should accompany your letter, you know, or even if it doesn't, but I want to know that you have it, because I have to appoint somebody to replace you. I do not know what was said to Jesma. I am trusting that our wonderful president would have done that, because she, I believe, knows the protocol. That's why she's president. I do not know whether the honorable member of Salisbury and Marigot did not agree to do whatever the president suggested. I don't know. But for all intents and purposes, it is being said that Jesma resigned and there is no leader of the opposition. And I said in my solo post some time ago that in my view of the understanding of the continuance of authority, that by default, Jesma remains the leader of the opposition, even if she resigned. Because power and authority They are connected and they continue flowing. A resignation does not nullify a constitutional position. Yeah, you may have resigned from the office, but the office has to be filled. If the office is not filled, you are the warmer of the office. So if I were the president, as I said in my post, I would have called Jesma back and say, come on, we have a problem here. You fix this until such time. I'm going to have to ask you to withdraw your resignation because you have to continue serving. That's how I saw it. Now, the Constitution does not say all of that. In fact, the Constitution does not say a lot. But I am thinking from the understanding that I have of politics, and I'm saying that's what ought to have happened. Other learned scholars called me and said, well, no, by default, it should be Charles. And they quote in part of the Constitution that says, I think section, I'll get to it in a while, some section that says the president can, in their own deliberate judgment, decide who, if there is not a clear majority of who should be in their position. Yes, it says that. But the president cannot single-handedly decide that one person out of two should be, because you need a majority. And one is not a majority of one. So the idea is, it is being suggested that Charles should automatically become the leader when Jesma defaulted or when Jesma resigned. No, it doesn't happen so. The agreement between Jesma and Anthony does not rise to the level of the Constitution. That is not in any way, not even close. There had to have been a protocol, some instrument again presented to the president upon which the president would act. Or the president had to call back Jesma or call Anthony or call both of them and say, guys, you guys are forming the laugh. I'm looking for a word and the word didn't come, so I just say laugh. You guys are forming the laugh. Let us work it out. You and you, before you leave here today, give me something. I need to appoint somebody. Or Jesma, by default, give me a revocation of your resignation, because I cannot not have a leader of the opposition. So yes, I know some are saying that it would and should have been Anthony, but I'm not getting the argument that supports that. Why Anthony? Show me where in the constitutional provision it should be Anthony. Because the only thing the president can do is act on advice of the opposition members. And if there's no advice to act on, you now have to say, well, fellas, girls, ladies, I need an advice. Give me something. So I think it is easier because she is the incumbent or was the incumbent holder of the office. And it's easier because she already had the instrument of appointment of leader of the opposition. It is easier for the president to go back to her and default back to her than to default to Anthony. Because the president has nothing with which to go to Anthony, but something to go back to Jesma and say, but Jesma, you were gazetted. Look your name there. You just resigned. You didn't give me anything. Revoke your resignation and let's talk. I think, in my own understanding, that makes more sense. But I'm here to see what the learned people on the live believe. And based on the questions you ask, I'll go to the Constitution and deal with it. So let me look to see before I continue, and then we'll have a kind of an exchange or dialogue between us. All right. So I'm seeing a comment here from Margaret Wallace. It says, it seems to me that even beyond the agreement between Paul and Charles, with Charles being the only remaining representative in the opposition, it seems as if by default he would be the opposition leader. And she's asking that question. And I have gotten that from people who are lawyers and people who are experts in the Constitution. But let's talk about that. And I am recognizing you as Dr. Wallace, Dr. Triffy. You will have to appreciate that, yes, there are two. And one isn't, so the other one should be. So why isn't the other one? If it was so easy, the president would have put him already. It's not that easy. Both must agree and send instruments to the president for the president to decide. Now, some may say there's a provision in the Constitution, and I could read it. Because in Section 66, 1, it says, there shall be a leader of the opposition who shall be appointed by the president. 2, whenever there is occasion for the appointment of a leader of the opposition, the president shall appoint the elected member of the House who appears to him most likely to command the support of a majority of the elected members of the House who do not support the government, or if there are no members elected of the House who appear to him to command such support, the elected member of the House who appears to him to command the support of the larger single group of members of the House who do not support the government. What that means is there must be someone who appears to be the one that is getting the support of the House who does not support the government. There are 19 people supporting the government. There are 2 not supporting the government. You alone cannot be the majority of yourself. So the president cannot appoint him, Dr. Triffy. The president can only appoint somebody who the majority says. And the majority is 2. If there were 3 people, the majority would still be 2. So it so happened that there were only 2, and the majority is 2. If the 2 cannot agree, the president cannot appoint. That is why the president cannot appoint Anthony as leader of the opposition. That is why the prime minister danced around it, He's a very clever guy, He all but said that Anthony should be recognized. He couldn't say that because he doesn't have the power to do that. But when there was the budget debate, he moved the motion for Anthony to get equal time as the finance minister to respond to the budget, essentially declaring Anthony leader of the opposition. But Anthony cannot act leader of the opposition because he doesn't have the power. I mean, the prime minister is playing his little semantics, his little politics. And you have to admire him for that. He's trying. But he doesn't have the power to declare Anthony, even if he plays his little nagecia about it. So, Dr. Wallace, I don't think your question stands. Anthony cannot be until Jesma agrees. And you may ask, why can't Jesma agree? And I can ask the same thing. I think she should agree. But she hasn't. And that's where we are today. So that is in answer to your question. Margaret says, I see. So that means Miss Paul has refused to agree. That's what I heard. I do not know. I don't have, there are a number of letters that I've seen going around the place. I don't make that my business. That's politics, partisanship. That ain't nothing to that, semantics. I'm discussing this on a different level, on a constitutional level. And I don't want to bring all these little things because they do not really tie into the Constitution. And it is obvious that Jesma does not agree. If she had agreed, Anthony would have been leader today. And I continue to say that the default leader has to be Jesma. It cannot be Anthony because there was nothing ever appointing him. And there is nothing now appointing him. So poor guy is existing without an appointment, which he should have had, based on an arrangement. But again, that is not for me to comment on. All right. Is there any other question? Anybody challenging me that I would like that you want me to look at? Because I do not really intend to speak forever. I just wanted to make that point, one point and out. Let me see another question. The Narin Show live. My brother, the trendsetter, the road match king of Dominica, the only road match king. Well, I should say Calypso road match or road match, because back there's no other title road match in Dominica officially that goes to the business of king of the road. Yes, there was a private firm that created a bouillon category this year, and that was good. But the road match king of Dominica, as much as I love Trilogy, that's my boy, I work in his camp. Yeah, so he has his little bouillon road match title, which is corporate, but trendsetter is Dominica's road match king, 2025. a song written by yours truly and executed by Trendsetter. So he's making a contribution to the program. He says, what section of the Constitution was used to legalize the sharing arrangement? Hey, I love you, Narin. No section of the Constitution of Dominica allows for such sharing. Parties, candidates, members can agree with anything, as I said, but this does not rise to the level of the Constitution. There is nothing that I have read. Probably another expert who have read the Constitution can tell me where it is written, but I have not seen it written. It has been done in the past where people share the role. But whenever they decide to have somebody do the role, they must agree to send a letter to the president. That's what the Constitution says. So that sharing of power is not constitutional. It's something that is done outside of the purview of the Constitution. It only becomes constitutional when the position is gazetted on affirmation by the president of Dominica. All right. So that's it now. I don't think that exists. Darius Liquent, a gentleman who I admire, and someone who I do not really know whether he's a constitutional expert, but I've heard people refer to him as that. I know he loves the Constitution, and I believe as well he's an expert statistician, I think. So he has some credentials, and he is commenting. There is no provision in the Constitution for the leader of the opposition to resign. Check the condition under which that position falls vacant. And I agree with him, he's right. And that might be a shortcoming of the Constitution. He is right. And he agreed with me at first when I said by default she is. Not for the same reason that I said, but for the reason that he's now raising. So, a leader of the opposition cannot really resign in Dominica. Technically, no. But I guess yes. So these are questions that we have to answer. So you can arrive at the right conclusion for different reasons. And when I did con law, my dear doctor friend, our instructor, the professor, always challenge us to come up to your own conclusion. If you are right and that other person is right, let me know why you are right or why you so conclude. You could have the same conclusion for different reasons. And we came to the same conclusion on many occasions for different reasons. The Constitution is one of the most beautiful subjects. And if I do it over again, I don't think I will, I think I would do constitutional law. And maybe eventually become a lawyer. I do not know. But if I could do it again, I don't think I will, but I really love it so much. All right. So, Dr. Wallace, so we have a lot of doctors on the program, boy. Dr. Wallace came back in and she says, so who can get the current opposition leader who supposedly resigned to fix matters so that the whole of Dominica is not at a standstill on this issue? Are you saying the president has to step in? Okay. Who has to advise the lady? Those who advise her not to do it should understand the significance and the gravity of the moment and say, look, man, let's stop playing those little petty games. Just go ahead and support him. Let him be. Even if he joined a party and he won his vote in our area and the party he joined is opposition to us. Forget all of that. Those little petty squabbles should not affect the running of our government. Support the brother, Jesma. So the people who advise you, and I suspect you are being advised, or if you're not being advised, I'm sorry. If you're acting in your own volition, I think you should probably think of supporting him and let him be, because if there was an agreement between you guys, albeit one that fell through. But sometimes we have to rise beyond the party and represent the state. And at this very crucial moment, I think it's important that you and Anthony work it out and allow us to have a leader of the opposition to run the affairs of our country. Because the prime minister now cannot do much. Well, he's doing a lot without the proper protocol that is required for him to do. I mean, he just appointed a commissioner and a deputy commissioner. Who did he consult with to do that? These things are very ticklish constitutional questions. And that's not the first time we had that issue in Dominica. I can talk about the last time in the 70s, but I won't bring that into our conversation right now. All I'm saying is, I think we need to fix the problem, and JESMA probably need to go back to our advisors and say, look, guys, I think we have overplayed our hands. I really we should fix this. And probably Anthony may agree for her to go back in. But we need that. The Prime Minister cannot do it. And Margaret, the President cannot do it. The President doesn't have the power. The Constitution does not offer the President the power. In fact, I'm going to come back to a question you asked again. But here's what the Constitution says about the President. I think in section 66, subsection 4, no, 66.5. It says, if it appears to the President that the leader of the opposition is no longer able to command the support of the majority of the elected members of the House who do not support the government, or if no elected member of the House appears to him or her in that place to be able to command such support, the support of the largest single group or members of the House who do not support the government shall remove the leader of the opposition from office. Menupanisa, we come back to square one again. The powers of the President under the section shall be exercised by him or her in this case in his own deliberate judgment. So yes, that's where some lawyers are telling me that the President can take a deliberate judgment to act and put Anthony. But section 5 does not say that, and all the other subsections. You can, in your judgment, if you have people, but you don't have people, it's two you have. And none of the two agreed for the other. So what you're going to do? Put Anthony for there to be a matter against the President? Put back JESMA? It's easier. Call her and say, revoke your resignation. She might do it. She might say, well, okay, I'll revoke and I'll continue to serve. It might benefit her too. But that is how it works. Again, based on my best reading of things. I don't really want to talk about my credentials and what I do. You guys know what I do. So this is based on my decades of understanding of the theory of politics and government and constitutional authority. All right. King Girardel Malon, a brother next to my heart, says there was no need for the Constitution to allow sharing. There was a special arrangement in good faith. There are two elected members. Each has to vote for the same person in order for there to be an opposition leader. Correct so far. JESMA has to vote for herself and Anthony for her to become, and vice versa. And Malon is right. Malon Girardel is on the money. He has been on the money politically in Dominica. Sometimes, we and him have a little fight. But I always give it to Malon. He's right. There cannot be one if there is not the other. And I keep on saying that JESMA was, and what the President has to do is call JESMA back and tell her, revoke your resignation. I'm using the power of my office to tell you to do that. Because I need you to serve if he cannot serve. And I know Miss Burton, Her Excellence, can do that. I do not know whether she doesn't have the liberty to do that. I'm not suggesting that she does not have her own mandate, because I think she does. But that can be fixed by her today by calling JESMA. No, come to the office tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock. We need to have a conversation. You're not going to leave here until this is resolved. You have to do that. Or JESMA and Anthony has to meet tonight. Go and have a red wine somewhere. Anthony should drive to Salisbury and meet with JESMA and her husband. And knock some glasses, man, and give us a leader of the opposition. Stop the games, man. That's why people are turned off from all the power politics, because you guys are playing silly partisan games. And Marlon can tell you who are the people behind it. If I will not say it, but if Marlon writes it, I will read it. All right. Munsewi says, this creates a constitutional crisis. And you're right, Munsewi, it is a crisis that can be averted, that can be stopped, if only mature heads prevail. And those people who did not contest, those who trying to reassert themselves, I think, I'm not saying that they're guilty of it, but they should come together and help Jesma and help us work this thing out. As I said, the politics in Dominica is played so much based on party, what my party wants, what my party can get, and all of that. And we forget the bigger picture. The bigger picture is that our state is not operating properly without a leader of the opposition, and we are giving too much liberty to an incumbent prime minister to do what he would like, and he is so enjoying this, and you can't blame him. Nana do he getting we? Lob ups we he getting, donkey drops we. He hooking all them things for 6 weeks. That's a gift he has politically in Dominica. We. That's the best gift somebody who wants power gets me, is that way. And you are so short-sighted based on your own partisan interests that you're not understanding that you have to pull away from this ill-advised positions. First of all, not contesting the election. Second of all, causing us, well, I'm not saying that whoever caused that crisis, but I'm hearing things like everybody else. I'm hearing it. I am hearing. So the advisors of Jesma should really get with it. Because gone are the days when people would not speak up on those issues. When there was a constitutional crisis in Dominica in the 70s, I didn't hear anybody speak about it. I have no commentary of it. Do you guys know that the Parliament of Dominica was convened without a president and without the prime minister say so? The head of the parliament did not convene parliament, and parliament was convened to take out the head of the parliament, Patrick John. In Dominica, that happened, you know. And people hardly spoke about it because based on popular notion, that was a taboo area to go to. Let's not discuss it. So we left a constitutional crisis unresolved in Dominica, and we have another one that's going to remain unresolved until the next election, you know. But no one was brave enough to speak, but I'm speaking because I have nothing to lose. Dominica say pay more. And even if politically you guys sideline me, it doesn't matter. I will speak for what I think should be done properly when it comes to the governance of our country. And this partisan shenanigans is too much. We have to rise beyond that. And we should have somebody installed as a leader for opposition. If not, we're giving too much power to the majority party in office. Okay, Donovan Massacre. My junior member of the police service, I was called and I received the oath of service before you, Donovan. You came long after me. So, but you're my brethren and my friend. You have a comment. Let me read your comment. Donovan said the agreement between the two opposition members was addressed. Mr. Savre, the then president, was addressed to Mr. Savre, the then president. If it was addressed to just the office of the president, would the letter of agreement make a difference? I don't think so, Donovan. I don't think a letter being addressed to the office of the president saying that we are going to share opposition leader position at a time. I don't think it would have made a difference now because the president cannot act on that agreement. The president can only act on the articles of appointment, and none of them signed that. None of them told the president to do it. The agreement is just something on paper. That does not give the president the power to act. What gives the president power is the protocol that they both must sign to go to the president. If the president acts on that agreement, that is a problem. And the president will not do that. Not even they give her 10 million US dollars. She will say, Pala, you guys don't hold me on that. And Donovan, you're a lawman. I think you should understand that, right? And that's how I see it. And that's how I think it is indeed. Margaret Wally says, what's to work out if they had a sharing arrangement? Why do we renege on arrangements Why can we not keep our word? Margaret, this is politics. People hardly keep their words in politics. Look at how many promises our government in power made and past governments. We had people cross the floor. People promised to run for constituencies and win and cross the floor the next day. A lot of strange things happen in politics. So it would be nice in an ethical situation, let's say in church or in corporate world, when you have an agreement, you have an agreement. In politics, those agreements mean nothing. People can walk away from agreements like that easily. And that's some of the things that happens in politics. Sorry to laugh, Margaret, but that's just how it is sometimes. All right. Carlos says, are you aware of an almost situation like this before this current PM took office? Oh, yes. Yes, Carlos, I'm aware that before our present prime minister was elected, following the death of Pierre Chat, a name was presented to President Nicholas Joseph Ovid Liverpool. My dear friend, may he rest in peace. My buddy, so much so he invited me to his inauguration and I attended. He gave me an exclusive interview. I went to Boiling Lake with him and his wonderful daughter. And I wouldn't say a lot of things he told me. So he was my friend, I know. A name went up to Dr. Liverpool to be president, to be prime minister of Dominica. And you know what Liverpool said? Oh, go back and submit another name. I won't say who, but those who know. The president, a mature man at the time, said, I'm not saying that our president now is not mature, but Liverpool said then, that name you send to me to be prime minister shall not be prime minister. Give me another name. And I think the president got another name because somebody else became prime minister. And that's all I'm saying on that. Carlos, don't tease me because I know a lot of stuff. I cannot declare too many stuff, but I know a lot of stuff. Marlon says again, and I'm looking at my clock, we have 13 minutes remaining. We have 1 hour. So we're going to do 1 hour and we're done. Marlon said, bad advice. If given the people based on hate and pettiness and not based on the matter at hand. Jesma received bad advice from the same person who loves to direct movies driven by arrogance and vindictiveness. Marlon, I thought you were brave. You didn't give me anything to work with. I read what you give me, and anything you give me, I will read, but I will not see who, based on my understanding, is advising Jesma. And I think you are right there as well. So, guys, I'm hoping that you're getting the understanding, and I only decided to come to do this because of the number of calls and messages that I received over time telling me to expound. So now that I've expounded, I really hope you understand and that we can have a serious conversation about it. All right. John Baptist is at Holday from Granby. He contested for the Granby constituency. A cultural giant in the south. Okay, so I think that's you Holday. John Baptist is saying, but there was an agreement between Jesma and Anthony Charles to share the lead of the opposition. Both of them won their seats as independent candidates. Why any third party has so much say in that matter? That's not healthy for democracy. Both Paul and Charles must come to an amicable solution. Voila. And I can say voila, but that's not how it is. There are some pushers. There are some little puppet masters in the politics of Dominica. And they involve in everything. And certainly in that. And I can go further to say that it is not majority party politics. It is opposition party politics that is doing the little rigmarole that's happening there. I can confirm it is. And your point is well taken, but that's sadly how it is. And Jesma just has to call Anthony right now. Or Anthony call Jesma. I reached out to Jesma, you know, when she became leader of the opposition. I wouldn't say what I talked to her, but I always try to assist and help and get involved. I guess she had this down pack, because she told me she has a team. But her team, if I was part of her team, I would have said, Jesma, come on, man. And I would help, I would advise. I say, you know, look at the bigger picture, man. At the end of the day, be magnanimous, because history will record you as, you know. I do not know what they told her, but she, based on what we have observed, has not agreed for Anthony to be. But Anthony should reach out. Anthony, when was the last time you called Jesma, Anthony? All right, my cousin Ricardo sent to me, who has a program, a very good program as well, nice platform, and disseminates really good information. He's from Wesley, and an entrepreneur. I think he's involved in creating liquor. I see a brand being made in Woodfordale, my second village. I think I'll sample it when he decides for me to do so. I forgot the name, but I saw the brand. Anyway, Ricardo is saying, so is the parliament therefore unconstitutional? Is that there is no opposition leader? All right. So let me see how I can explain that to you. So the parliament is properly convened. It is not unconstitutional. The problem with it is that the government of Dominica is lacking a major constitutional position, which is necessary for the fair, democratic, and effective operation of government. So we have a little kind of crisis on our hands without somebody in the office. That's a constitutional designated position where it is declared that there shall be someone for many good reasons. Who is checking what the prime minister is doing? Nobody. No one. So we need someone to be able to constitutionally check, because no one now can check him. Well, the judiciary, which is the third branch of government, can. That's the law, the courts. But the courts needs things to come to it for them to check. And members of the society can take action. I could sue and say there should be somebody and demand that there is somebody. I don't want to do it. So no, it is not an unconstitutional situation. It is a situation where there is a big void. So if the government has 2 feet, is now standing on 1 foot. So that's how I would like to explain it. Ricardo. Anthony Charles, the member of Marigot, has contributed to the program, and he is saying, I signed for her already, so don't look for me to sign again. So if it has to have to stay in a crisis, so be it. And I Mr. Honorable Member of Marigot, I respect and probably even agree with what you're stating, because you agreed, you did, and you expect it to be reciprocated. It didn't for some whatever reason. So I understand your stance. And probably Mr. MP, the onus is on the MP from Salisbury. I have been calling on her. If you heard, I call on both of you to come together. And I've been calling on her more so. And I hope you agree with me that probably she, by default, is the person who is serving. And if she agreed with you that you should serve, she should demit it properly and support you to serve. And I said repeatedly that her advice is not allowing her to do that. Or probably she's acting on her own volition. But when I spoke with her at first, she told me she has a team. So I'm trusting that her team is advising her. So I respect, I understand, and I even appreciate the fact that you commented. And I would still like to ask you, Honorable Member of Parliament, Marigot, to still reach out again. Try again. Just try one more time. Call her. Drive up to her house. Don't enter without permission. Stay outside and honk and say, Jasmine, come, let's talk, man. I think she, after that program, will understand the seriousness of the situation, because I would like to call you the leader of the opposition, Mr. Charles, hopefully from tomorrow, because you deserve it. You have won, and there was an agreement for you to have been it a few months ago. And I'm just being fair. I'm trying to be fair to all parties, and I hope you understand, Mr. Charles. If I said anything wrong, please understand that I'm just here trying my best to stay in the middle and to run this thin line. All right. And thanks again for jumping in and for adding a little bit just before we end. Darius Liquin says Jesma was advised to resign before the agreement specified. So she resigned before the agreement? I thought the agreement was done before her resignation. Wasn't that an agreement that they had going into the term? I didn't know that. Probably Anthony can confirm that. I thought the agreement came at the beginning and the resignation came after. I do not know. I don't know. Margaret, Dr. Triffy. It's not even about being magnanimous. It's about honor. Sorry, have we considered that Mr. Charles is representing the entire community? Whoa, we can do better. We can do better, Dr. Triffy, and we should do better. And again, I continue to say that they can play their partisan politics and wallow in the pettiness of the moment. But until such time that we can rise, and you heard it from Mr. Charles today, that he signed already, he's not doing it again because there was an agreement. I agree and understand. And one may say that he's not perpetuating the crisis. He's just saying let fairness and let honor prevail. I cannot disagree with that. Now, if he decides to say, you know what, in the interest of country, I'm going to give it to her, and he does it, I think, Mr. Charles, you will even be seen bigger and better, and you never know what the people might think about that the next election. You never know. Again, that's maybe free advice to you publicly, so you can think about that too. You can think about that too. That could be a strategy. You never know. Mr. Charles says again, the MP says, she resigned so she don't have to go out. Okay, she resigned so she don't have to go out to the agreement. All right. Yeah, her resignation is her choice to move out. But I think it's a little technical, you know. Although she resigned, but she should have said that you are going to be it. She should have agreed. So her resignation is one thing, but she did not agree for you to be it, Mr. Charles. And that is where we have a problem there. So all she has to do now is just to go to the president now and say, you know what, I'm going to agree for Anthony Charles to serve as leader of the opposition. And I think she can do that tonight. Just call the president, and I think the president will say, come tomorrow, let's sign. And you could take the oath of office, and you get all the benefits that comes with being leader of the opposition. I think the country will be happy for that. Everybody will be pleased with that. But again, do not overlook the power in being magnanimous and saying, you know what, in the interest of country, let me do that. You never know the reward you might get for that in the future. All right, guys, we're getting close to the end, and the messages are coming in, the questions are coming in. Eli Newton, why do you want to be the one to do it? You just made mention of the fact that the third arm of government can act if they get stuff to act upon. You're a citizen as well, and you're saying you don't want to do it. Dare to share why? It is just too much of an undertaking for me to put myself out to demand that the head of state bring party together to do what is right. It's going to cost money and time that I really don't have much of at this moment. And I think it has to be somebody else, maybe Anthony Charles, somebody in the system, Malon, the guy, Girodel, somebody. But the matter has to be brought to the court. The court cannot bring a matter itself. And I think the court can hear it. And I think if the court hears it, the court will decide based on my reasoning. Maybe not fully my reasoning, but the court will say we need to have a leader of the opposition, we need a solution, and look at all the evidence and decide on the evidence. That's why I think like, and that's why I wouldn't do it. I don't have the time, nor do I have the resources to so do. Probably if you're willing to help and you're willing to sign with me, we can do it together. So we can speak after the program. Okay, if there's any more comment, let me see it quickly. If not, I'm going to wrap up because I have another commitment at 8 o'clock and then at 1 at 8:30. So I do not drag on my programs too long. I actually just keep going. Marlon, it has to be you with the last comment. And Marlon says, Jesma took terrible advice from someone who cost the supporters of his party almost $300,000 in radiothons on Q95 after he go England and play lawyer refusing free legal representation. Well, that is as close as you could get, Marlon. You just didn't call the name, but who has eyes to read, let them read. And who has ears to hear, let them hear. I've heard similar suggestions, but again, I do not know for a fact, so I cannot call names. You're being very smart, Marlon, but you're not going to catch me in that trap you're setting for me there. And that's how I'm going to end my program for today. I know that you have great interest in continuing, but I'm going to stop after an hour. We may continue this program in the future, but I cannot, and I do not want to continue any longer. Anthony, let me give you the last word. Anthony Charles, Member of Parliament for Marigot. Supporters in Marigot are not for me signing for her, so I will follow my supporters. Okay, here it is. That is it. Perfect way to end the program. Now, the MP from Marigot is saying that his supporters are not willing for him to do so. So even if he might be wanting to, and poor guy, probably he really want to do that, but his supporters are saying, MP, no. And he has to follow his supporters and his voters and his constituents. And that's a wise thing that you're doing, young man. Follow your constituents because you're going to need them tomorrow. You're a young man, and I think you'll contest again. And if you follow and support your constituents, you never know. They might return you a second time around. So with that final statement, I think the onus is on Jesma to act, and I'm hoping and trusting that she does so, and Anthony Charles becomes leader of the opposition in the Parliament of Dominica within, let's hope, 48 hours. I'm not demanding that. I'm just hoping. That would really make me and many Dominicans very happy. Thank you guys for being here. We'll see what happens the next time I come live. We might just continue this discussion or take up another topic of interest. Have a good one, and thanks for being here.